This is Media Philosophy, and we're exploring the deeper side of speedrunning and games done quick, one of the more interesting and cool ways to celebrate gaming. What better way to just show you really love a game than just beating it as quickly as possible using every exploit imaginable. For a while, events like Games Done Quick were incredibly entertaining to me. But that was a time when they would play a lot more games that were during my childhood. Now, when I look at the playlist for something like Games Done Quick, it only just reminds me how old I've gotten. If I would have looked at the playlist 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I'd be like, wow, yep, I know these games, this is fun. Now I'm just, after the event's all over, I'm scrolling through and just like, there's 3 maybe I'll watch here. Even this year, that just completed, I would maybe watch the Metal Gear Solid one. I've started the Legend of Zelda randomizer, and of course I'm going to check out that Silent 2 remake speedrun. But outside that, I was scrolling through it, and it just didn't seem like anything I needed to watch. But I get it. I'm not complaining. They need to keep the fresh blood flowing. You can only watch somebody do the same exploits so many times before you start, stop bringing in a crowd. Although, it is interesting that when you do look at the games, even if it is something that has been shown a lot, there are some like time-tested games that I feel like are just guaranteed to get good views. Obviously, like Legend of Zelda stuff, Majora's Mask stuff, anything like that. I would just feel like a lot of like the Nintendo 64 era games, rareware games always draw in some big crowd and whatnot. But either way, you can't just keep living off the same 25 games year after year. So it is good that they have expanded so much. Let younger people enjoy things. And that's part of growing up, is just surrendering certain things over and just realizing you're not the target demographic anymore. And honestly, outside of Games Done Quick, I don't really watch too many speedrunning things, speedrunning events. At most, it's something like I'll use it to fall asleep to. A lot of the times, it's just like the repetitive sounds of these games, and if I'm watching something that's just so familiar to me, it's just able to just lull myself right to sleep. I don't really find myself looking for a speedrun outside of Games Done Quick, just because I like their commentary, even if it's not one of their big events going on. That I will still like peruse the YouTube page every once in a while, because it is just kind of interesting to hear the commentary on certain games. You've heard it once, you've heard it a million times. I've just found myself going to them less and less, and I just really wonder, for the actual runners themselves, how much you have to love a game to just keep playing it over and over and over and over and over again. And the sad thing is, if you're going to dedicate your time to a game, if it's not a popular game, then unfortunately all that effort could go unappreciated. Obviously, a lot of people on the internet don't do things with the sole intent of being, appreciated. But speedrunning, I would view kind of like a sport, in a sense that, these are accomplishments meant to be documented, witnessed, and I guess that's what like the speedruns.com stuff has. To be one of those like top runners, that's gotta be I would imagine they're also streaming at the same time, but I can't even imagine, unless like they're top streamers, that they're gonna be making too much. I really don't know how much like the stream economy is worth. But again, I'm sure you're doing it for the joy of the game. You can't equate like speedrunners with streamers. I would say those are two distinct categories. Probably a lot of overlap. There are streamers who are speedrunners, and then of course there's speedrunners who stream. But I would say like speedrunners themselves are going to engage in the hobby for more you have to do it for yourself. You can't watch like the BioShock intro a million times purely because your stream wants it to. It's kind of like how there's only a certain kind of person who's actually going to go out and become a teacher, who's going to see all the crap that teachers have to go through and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That sounds fun. Sign me up. That's like streamers. That's like speedrunners. They're looking at this like, oh, we're going to do the exact same thing over and over again we're going to engage in the same cutscenes over and over again. And they're like, let's do it. I'm going to become the best at this game, which is kind of cool because then if you're within like a leaderboard within speedrunning, it's one of the metrics that you can claim that you're one of the best gamers of this specific game. You know, online matchmaking like Call of Duty obviously has its, you know, leaderboards like that. But for single player games and a lot of other experiences, this can be one metric to say like who is the best at the game. And I mean, what better metric than who can complete the game the fastest? And whether or not you want to learn the glitches or not is up to you, because there's always a million different categories with speedrunning. And as a viewer, it's just so satisfying just to watch somebody else wreck your favorite game. Something in my monkey brain made it feel like I was doing all this stuff, I guess. Part of it is growing up, glitches and exploits were still common enough within games that it's not like you had to work too hard to pull off things like the missing no glitch in Pokemon, or like the super bounce in Halo, or a bunch of other easily exploitable, you know, clipping and things like that. But within like, you know, the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 era, all the way up probably until like late Xbox 360, you know, early PlayStation 4, Xbox One, stuff like that, when like diskless digital downloads became so popular. Back when like games just shipped as they were, then as an adult to find all these people who are using all these glitches in creative ways to complete the game. Because, you know, some of those glitches were just really hard to do. Things like, you know, reverse bottle adventure in The Legend of Zelda, where you like swap your bottle for whatever item you want just by catching something with one bottle and swapping it in the last second. I don't know exactly how it works. All these glitches from this era are pretty well documented. There are some glitches that have been found, you know, I would say in the last like 10 years on a lot of these, you know, older games. But again, to like master them and to put them together and then to like perform is another thing. Another thing that's cool about speedrunning is it's like anybody can do it, more or less. You know, if you're like ambulatory from the waist up, more or less, you can become a speedrunner. Unlike things like sports, unlike other sports, or hobbies, you know, maybe like based on someone's like genetics, they might be better, height, their gear that they're able to afford can sometimes give them an advantage in a sport or some sort of hobby or something. There's none of that really in speed running. Because it's a video game, all the playing fields are level. It's not like, you know, because one person is 5'2" and the other one is 6'2", one has an advantage over the other. I mean, maybe a little bit with fingers and hands with controllers, but I don't know. At that point, I think we're just making excuses for other people. I think that's one of the reasons why you find so many people who are maybe in minority groups flock to speedrunning. Definitely impossible to deny that when you look at things like Games Done Quick, there is a disproportionate representation of the transgendered. And that's just because I think they find a community within speedrunning. It doesn't matter how they identify, it doesn't matter politics, whatever this. If you can beat Mario 64, you know, in under 20 minutes, then like, you know, that's pretty awesome. It's just nice in this day and age to have an arena where, you know, wealth or physical attributes, you can leave that at the table and just compete. And sure, maybe for some like PC games, there's things where you can like exploit frame rate, where it's just pay to win at that point. But again, a lot of times there's restricted categories where those sort of advantages aren't gonna be present anymore. It will be cool to see if speedrunning grows as just like a hobby, as the awareness of the hobby does continue. It seems like it is becoming more common. I mean, I feel like speed running is becoming a verb. Even if people aren't aware of what speed runs are, just the fact that it is entering into like the lexicon, I think is evidence that speed runs have some sort of cultural impact. And we'll see that as more kids grow up online and are looking for ways to kind of, you know, just compete with one another. We'll see if speedrunning becomes, more common. I mean, I would say even there are more games themselves that are promoting things like speedrunning. Nintendo, I would say, has done that with a few of their events, like with the Nintendo World Championship. There was like that Mario, everyone would play like Mario on the same level. It just seems like more people online even talk about it here or there. I feel like there's a lot of YouTubers. That Summoning Salt guy seems to be a source of a lot of inspiration. And again, just like people just stumble upon games done quick. They see their favorite game getting beat once, they start seeing some of their other favorite games on there. They just get sucked into it, and next thing you know, they're a casual fan like myself. I don't think it's unfathomable to think that within like 10 years, we might even see like speedrunning club. Maybe even before 10 years, honestly, we'll start seeing speedrun clubs in high school. I take that back. I bet there are speedrunning clubs now in schools across America. If you have a copy of a game, boom, that's it. That's basically the only prerequisite. That in time. Which is, again, why it would be perfect for more children to get into. I guess the only downside is, could it be a little pointless? Maybe, but, there's still something about execution on the spot. A lot of thinking goes into the routes of these games. So, going over how these routes got created could, lead to learning possibilities. At least I feel like most of the people within the speedrunning community are somewhat intelligent. But obviously, with anything with the internet and mixing it with like children, you just got to be so careful. I mean, if we've learned anything from like Smash Bros and whatnot, it's just dangerous to mix children in the internet communities too hardcore. There's just too many perverts out there ruining it for everybody, which is a shame. So if you or a loved one are in middle school or high school, think about starting a speedrunning club. This is Media Philosophy, exploring the deeper side of entertainment.